So we've been talking about the Great Depression this week, and today we're going to talk about President Roosevelt's plan to try and fix the Great Depression. We call that the New Deal. So in the 1932 election, Herbert Hoover on the left is running for re-election. His challenger is New York Governor Franklin Roosevelt. And we looked previously at their ideologies, Hoover being conservative, Roosevelt being more liberal. Certainly with as many people blaming Hoover for the Great Depression as there were, Roosevelt wins in a pretty huge landslide in 1932. And in addition to his ideas, people really responded to the fact that he was smiling and was very charming and optimistic. And in dark times like that, that's what a lot of people needed. Um, of course, and we talked about this before, Franklin Roosevelt's view on government was that in times of great crisis, especially, it was the government's job to help the people. That some problems will work themselves out. This was not one of those, and the government has to get involved. Of all of the problems that existed during the Great Depression, Roosevelt decided that the one that needed needed the most amount of attention right away was the banking system. So his plan to fix the banking system was pretty unconventional. All banks in the United States were closed for 8 days, all of them. And during that time, emergency laws were passed. Steps were taken to inspect the banks, look at them, guarantee their health, and once they were healthy enough after that bank holiday was over, they were able to reopen. So if you walked down the street after that bank holiday, you saw a bank that was open, you knew that the federal government said, we can trust this bank, you can trust this bank. That's going to increase deposits, and that's going to enable banks to do more to loan money out to businesses and help the overall economy. So we call this the New Deal because of a speech Roosevelt made where he says, I commit myself to a new deal for the country. And it's just used as this overall term for the programs that are designed to get the country out of the Great Depression. Three goals of the New Deal. Basically, I'll start with R, so that's helpful. The first is relief. There are people that need help right now. People that are starving, people that are homeless, people that are jobless. They need help right now. So we're going to try and relieve their suffering. Second goal is more medium term. We're going to try and get the economy up and running again. These would be like jumper cables to the economy. They're not going to be attached all the time forever, but until it's up and going on its own, then these programs are going to try and help the economy recover. And then obviously the country's going to have a lot of interest in making sure that this never happens again. So these reform efforts are designed to accomplish just that. Any new president will talk about the first 100 days as sort of a standard for a measurement for the president to. President made a lot of campaigns or a lot of promises during the campaign, and this is an opportunity for the president to carry that out. And so Roosevelt sets the standard for the 100 days, first 100 days, because a dozen major laws were passed. And part of that is due to the desire for change, and part of that is due to so many Democrats in the House and in the Senate that Franklin Roosevelt could kind of just propose something and it was going to get passed. Throughout the early years of the Great Depression, a number of agencies were created to try and solve various aspects of the Great Depression. The Civilian Conservation Corps, Agricultural Adjustment Act, National Industrial Recovery Administration, Public Works Administration, Tennessee Valley Authority, Securities and Exchange Commission, among many others, were all created in an attempt to address specific economic issues. Obviously, because of the increase in spending, because of the increase in the number of programs, the overall trend is that government is becoming much more involved, not just in the economy in a general sense, but in people's lives more specifically. And that's something that hadn't really been the case on a large scale before, and an argument can be made that we've never really gone back from this. Whether that's good or bad is up to you, but this is a pretty significant shift in the role of government in American history. There were a lot of people that didn't like this. That ironically, even though it did so much, there were people that didn't think it went far enough. Roosevelt that Roosevelt was preserving a lot of the aspects of capitalism that caused the problem in the first place and needed to do more. There were people that certainly would have and did think that FDR was going too far and had too much power. And at a time in which various European countries like Germany and Italy and Russia had dictatorships, people were somewhat afraid that that could happen here. Of course, that historically that didn't happen, but people were afraid of that at the time. Among other specific critics, Huey Long felt that Roosevelt wasn't going far enough and that the corrupt banks and business leaders were still in power, and that's going to cause problems for hardworking Americans in the future. So he proposes kind of almost like a socialist system, heavily tax the wealthy, guarantee a minimum income for every American. Again, that's going to be attacked as socialism. It doesn't guarantee equality for everybody, but just a livable wage, a livable income for everybody. That never ends up happening, by the way. Um, Charles Coughlin wanted to nationalize the banks to take the profit motive out of banks and make them ostensibly more fair. That doesn't end up happening. And Dr. Francis Townsend wants to give money to old people so that they will leave the job market, so that will open up jobs for younger people. And this is similar to what we'll get later in the 1930s with Social Security. Again, a lot of people felt that the president was growing too powerful. The Supreme Court was one of them, and a number of New Deal laws were found to be unconstitutional. That going too far, doing more, exercising more power than the Constitution gave the president or the legislature. And those are a couple examples of court cases there. One of which had to do with the Agricultural Adjustment Act and feeling that the government went too far in telling farmers what they could do and what they couldn't do. So that's just a basic introduction to the New Deal. We're going to continue to look at specific New Deal programs. Obviously, if you have any questions, you'll let me know.